The emergency beacon's shrill cry pierced through the void of space, carrying with it the desperate pleas of the Serenity's dawn. Captain Jihan pressed her palm against the cold metal of the observation deck's viewport, watching as the Krillian warships closed in on their position like hungry predators circling wounded prey. "How long until they're in firing range?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. 14 minutes, Captain," Lieutenant Chen replied from his station, sweat beading on his forehead. "Our shields are down to 30% and the engines are running on emergency power only." Jihan nodded grimly. The Serenity's Dawn was a research vessel, not a warship. They'd been studying the ancient ruins on Kepler 442b when the Krillian fleet had emerged from hyperspace, demanding surrender and claiming the planet as their new territorial acquisition. The crew of 200 scientists, researchers, and support staff never stood a chance against 6 battlecruisers. "Any response to our distress signal?" Jihan asked, though she already knew the answer. They were in the frontier sectors, 3 weeks' journey from the nearest Galactic Alliance outpost. "Nothing yet, Captain," Communications Officer Torres said quietly. "But I'm detecting something strange on long-range sensors." Before Jihan could respond, the space around them began to shimmer. Reality seemed to bend and twist as massive shapes began materializing out of hyperspace. One by one they appeared, sleek predatory vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "My God," Chen whispered. "Those are human ships." The lead vessel was enormous, easily twice the size of a Krillian battlecruiser. Its hull bore the distinctive angular design of Terran engineering. But this was no ordinary human ship. Weapon ports lined its surface like the scales of some great beast, and its very presence seemed to radiate an aura of barely contained violence. A communication channel crackled to life, and a voice filled the bridge. Calm, professional, but carrying an undertone that made even Jihan's blood run cold. "This is Admiral Sarah Morrison of the Terran Defense Force vessel Ragnarok. We received your distress call. Please stand by while we handle this situation." The Krillian fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming moments before, suddenly appeared insignificant against the backdrop of the human fleet. There were 12 ships in total, each one a masterpiece of military engineering born from humanity's violent history. "Human vessels," came the haughty transmission from the Krillian commander. "You are interfering in a lawful territorial acquisition. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." There was a pause that seemed to stretch for an eternity. Then Admiral Morrison's voice returned, and this time, there was no mistaking the edge of barely restrained fury. "Let me explain something to you about humans, Commander. We don't like bullies. We especially don't like bullies who threaten civilians. And we really don't like bullies who threaten our civilians while they're conducting peaceful scientific research." The Ragnarok moved forward with predatory grace, its weapon systems coming online with an ominous hum that could be felt even through the vacuum of space. "You see, Commander, humans come from what the rest of the galaxy calls a death world. We evolved alongside creatures that could tear us apart with ease. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have wiped out most species. We learned to fight not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we refused to give up." The human fleet began to spread out, taking formation around the Serenity's Dawn like a protective wall. "We carry that legacy in our DNA, in our culture, in the very steel of our ships. And right now, you've just threatened people under our protection. That makes you our problem." Jihan watched in fascination as the Krillian ships began to waver in their formation. She'd studied human military history, had read about their wars and conflicts, but seeing their fleet in action was something entirely different. "Final warning, Commander," Admiral Morrison continued. "Withdraw from this system immediately, or learn why the rest of the galaxy calls us Deathworlders." For a moment, it seemed as though the Krillian commander might actually back down. But pride and arrogance won out over wisdom. "Human vessels, you are outnumbered. 6 battle cruisers against your 12 ships. Stand down." The response was immediate and devastating. The human fleet opened fire with synchronized precision that spoke of countless hours of training and combat experience. But these weren't the wild, overwhelming barrages Jihan had expected. Instead, each shot was calculated, precise, designed to disable rather than destroy. Within minutes, the Krillian fleet was drifting helpless in space, their weapons systems destroyed, their engines offline, but their crews alive. "That's the difference between us and them." Admiral Morrison's voice came through the comm system. now speaking directly to the Serenity's dawn. We could have vaporized them in the first salvo, but we chose not to. That's what makes us human. As the Ragnarok pulled alongside their vessel, Jihan felt a surge of pride in her species. They were indeed the products of a death world forged in conflict and hardship. But more than that, they were a people who chose to use their strength to protect the weak rather than exploit them. Captain Jihan? Admiral Morrison's voice carried a warmth now that the danger had passed. We're here to escort you safely back to Alliance space. Your research is too important to let pirates interfere with it. Jihan smiled as she watched the mighty human fleet take protective formation around their small research vessel. In a galaxy full of predators and bullies, humanity had chosen to be the guardians. They were Deathworlders, yes, but they were Deathworlders with a conscience. And that made all the difference.